What's up, everybody? It's Justin. So, let's jump in. First things first. This is one of those episodes where I have to do a disclaimer, okay? I am not a doctor. I do not pretend to be a doctor. I am not giving you medical advice. Anything that I tell you today is from my own personal research, from my own personal experience and experimentation on myself. These are my opinions based on the research and experience that I have. This is not medical advice. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not saying you should do anything. If you take any of the information from tonight and you go do something with it, I am not responsible for that. Okay? Got to get that out of the way for legal reasons, blah, 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 blah. You understand? The topic tonight, I wanted to get that disclaimer out of the way before we jump into this. The topic tonight is fasting. I'm actually calling this episode Fasting Facts from Fat Loss to Longevity, because we're going to cover just about every aspect of fasting that you can. This is something that I have done extensive research on, and I'll explain why, because of something that my family went through when I was first introduced to fasting, the ketogenic diet, all these things. We're going to talk about all of that, but I had to get that disclaimer out there because this is very, very important stuff, and I want to make sure that you don't think I'm telling you to cure medical ailments with this. Right? That's research you have to do on your own. I'm doing my own research. These are my own opinions, and I'm gonna share it with you. And I'm really, really excited about it. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Fasting facts from fat loss to longevity. Let's start with where we have gone wrong. All the things that we've been told about fasting. So here's the trend I saw in the academy. Here's the trend I saw in I Am Clovis. People who are very afraid of fasting. You are afraid of not eating, which is ridiculous because we've been not eating throughout all of time, right? So tonight we're going to talk about all the myths you've been told about fasting. I'm going to tell you the difference between caloric restriction and fasting. They are not the same thing, right? I tell people that not eating enough calories is terrible for you, right? And then I tell you that fasting is beneficial. Wait, that's confusing. You know, caloric restriction is less calories, fasting is no calories. Exactly, that's the point. Calories measure food intake. Fasting only measures amount of time spent not eating. Calories are a moot point because there are zero, except in specific circumstances, which we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about which individuals would benefit the most from fasting. I'm going to tell you about which individuals should not attempt fasting. We're going to talk about the different types of fasting. I'm going to teach you about hacks, little tips and tricks like that you can cheat to make fasting a little bit easier. And then I'm going to talk about fasting for specific goals. We're also going to talk about physique goals versus longevity goals, okay? Because there's a big difference there for obese people versus lean people. When we talk about your kids, how this impacts your kids, I'm just gonna touch on kids briefly. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but this is really important for you to know for your kids, really. I'm gonna talk to you about scientific studies, a few little case studies that I think were really interesting that you guys need to see. We're going to debunk things like The Biggest Loser TV show. Yay, right? Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I always gotta do this. My name is Justin Nault. I'm a certified nutritional therapist. I am the founder of Clovis. I invented the Perfect Paleo Powder, a line of nutritional powders, and I help people transform their lives. I do what I call lifestyle coaching through Clovis kids, children and their family, adults. We got the Clovis Academy, we have I Am Clovis, we have all these amazing groups, Clovis Kids, right? I help people lose 50 pounds in 8 weeks, 40 pounds in 60 days, 21 pounds in 15 days, whatever it may be. We have a transformation for every story, large, small, and everything in between, right? So also, if you stay till the end of this, don't go anywhere. Right? You're going to have a toolbox full of actionable items and actionable tips to use fasting for just about any area of health you can think of improving, right? It's that powerful, very, very powerful stuff. You're going to learn how the body prioritizes what to burn and what to keep. This is very, very important, and this is the big part of the difference between caloric restriction and fasting. What I want to start with is, in the good words of my friend CJ Hunt, Dispelling the Lies. That's a new documentary he has coming out that I'm funding, and it's awesome. I'm officially an executive producer. Cool, right? Okay, Dispelling the Lies about fasting. So somewhere along the line, humans started losing trust in their own bodies, right? Now, again, we're going to get into how this happened. It's not your fault. We started distrusting our own body. We started thinking that we know better than Mother Nature, right? That we can shift things, we can change things, we can do whatever we want nutritionally, fitness-wise, whatever. Now, since our days as hunter-gatherers, it has always been feast or famine, right? I named my company Clovis after the Paleolithic hunter-gatherer Clovis tribe in North America, right? They would hunt woolly mammoths with spears. Now, not every hunt is successful. When a hunt is not successful, you famine. When you have a hunt that's successful, you feast. It's been this way forever. Human beings have been fasting literally forever, except maybe the last 50 years, right? Because of food pyramid and blah, 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 all this stuff, right? So I want you to think about it. This goes back so far that in the Bible, I know you Clovis Academy people, there's a lot of you conservatives out there. In the Bible, there are 77 different references to fasting in the Bible. In fact, every single major religion across the whole planet uses fasting in some way, shape, or form, right? Everybody talks about fasting. Like my dad as a Christian has done 30-day fasts. That's crazy, right? Fasting and prayer. So here's what happens, and I'll tell you the personal experience with my family here. In the Bible, a lot of these moments are where somebody is facing demonic possession. They've been possessed by a demon, and then the only answer to this is fasting and prayer, right? Fasting and prayer will eliminate the demon. It'll exorcise the demon. Fasting and prayer, fasting and prayer. So these people fast, pray, and there's no more demon inside of them. Now, what was actually happening? Think about this. Reality, modern science, right? They were not possessed by a demon. They were having epileptic seizures. Now, an epileptic seizure to someone in the time of Jesus could very well look like they had been possessed by a demon. They didn't have the science to tell us what the hell was going on, right? So they think there's a demon. By having them fast and pray, they were entering into deep nutritional ketosis. Ketosis and the ketogenic diet, as we now know, are used to treat epileptic seizures. I know this because my niece was born having 300 plus seizures a day. You guys know that story. So they tried to treat her with the ketogenic diet. It didn't work for her because she wasn't epileptic. But that's when I was introduced to, I was having phone conversations with the Charlie Foundation. They use the ketogenic diet and ketosis to treat seizures in epileptic children, right? That's how this was happening. Fasting has been around forever and it's incredibly beneficial, right? Especially for things like seizures and all sorts of other stuff like you're gonna learn. So fast forward to 2008, it is marketing companies and big food. Remember Manifesto, I am no longer the victim of marketing gimmicks and big food propaganda. That's in there for a reason, because everything we ever talk about is marketing gimmicks and big food propaganda. That's what happened here, right? We have marketers and big food companies that have screwed us over once again. How? With the advent of the snack. We don't need snacks, right? Crazy. Oh no, it's backwards again. I did it. I did the thing wrong. Crap. All right, hold on. Let me adjust this. I'll fix it. Okay, so these marketing companies and big food propaganda literally screwed us with the advent of snacking, right? So everybody thinks this thing where we need to eat small meals, 2 to 3 small meals per day. Marketing gimmicks and big food propaganda. They convinced you that you needed to snack. And then with the adoption of the food pyramid, you had all these different trainers, right? Every single trainer that you ever speak to is saying you need to eat 2 to 3 small meals. Eat every 2 to 3 hours, small meals, 5 meals a day, whatever. And in between mealtime, you have snack time. This is probably the worst possible advice you could give somebody for overall health. It's terrible. So I want you to think about this another way. Think about your grandparents, right? So let's say back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, whatever, right? There was still tons of white bread, pasta, all these things that people were eating, but there was literally an intermittent fast between basically every single meal. So what happened was at that time period, almost everybody had like an 8-hour-a-day manual labor job. These were labor jobs, right? So they would eat at the kitchen table with their family in the morning for breakfast, then they'd go to work, then they would have a lunch break, then they would eat in their lunch break, then go back to work, then they would go home and eat dinner with their families, right? In this time period, there were no Laura bars, there were no Cliff bars, there was no paleo powder to have with your shaker cup. This just wasn't a thing, right? This snacking thing was not a real thing. And on top of that, there weren't even any computers, right? So there's no mindless eating in front of screens. There's so much mindless eating now. People bringing snacks to work because of the constant, like I talk about that roller coaster, the blood sugar spikes. Because of the blood sugar spikes, you're sitting at a desk job at a cubicle with a Yeti full of Starbucks Mocha Choca bullshit with 2 pumps of caramel and whipped cream. You got a bag of nuts next to you. You got a Laura bar. You got a banana in case you get hungry. Good Lord, if I get hungry, I'm gonna get a headache, right? It's all this snacking and food pyramid nonsense coming back to bite us again and again and again. This has zero scientific evidence behind it. There's no scientific evidence behind the fact that we need to snack or eat every 2 to 3 hours. It actually goes against every single thing that we know to be true about human physiology, right? So what happens here is all of this advice, it seems like it's coming from mainstream nutrition. So we assume it's good for us. They're not giving you this advice for your health. They're doing this to convert you into a non-stop consumer, right? All these cheap little carbohydrates, granola bars, Cliff bars, all these things. The marketing is directed at making you a consumer. They want you to be a consumer. If you're not consuming, marketers are not happy. Big food companies are not happy. If you're fasting, you're not consuming. This is why people don't talk about fasting in an open way, because there's no money to be made. I can't make any money by telling you to start fasting. I can't make any money by saying, hey, stop eating, right? So all these bullshit things spread, and they're purposefully put out there to deter you, and all these trainers and mainstream people, they parrot this advice. Let me give you the best example. Quote, the human brain needs 130 grams of glucose to function properly, right? Have you ever heard that? I'm sure everybody's heard that nonsense, right? Complete nonsense. Not only is it complete nonsense, there's no studies to back it up. There's no scientific evidence. It was literally made up out of thin air. And you have professionals with personal training certificates that repeat this stuff. I've had it said to me countless times, right? Countless times, and I'm like, oh, this person doesn't know who I am. They don't know what I study. They would not say something that ridiculous. If that were true, human beings would have died off long ago. There's no way our Paleolithic ancestors could have guaranteed 130 grams of glucose every single day for optimal brain function. We wouldn't be here. The human species literally would have died off, right? It's this idea that we are suddenly cows and we need to graze, or just grazing all day long, is ridiculous. With no evidence behind it, we're literally behaving like the wrong species. Like, literally behaving like the wrong species. It's ridiculous. So that's a little bit about these myths about fasting.